This week, NATO leaders met in Turkey with the alliance under more strain than at any point in decades. But behind every argument about unity sits a harder question: money. Taken together, NATO members spend well over $1.3 trillion a year on defense. That is more than the next 10 countries combined. Yet the fight inside the alliance is not about whether that number is big. It is about who pays it, and the answer has been lopsided for 70 years. The United States alone accounts for roughly 2/3 of all alliance defense spending. For American taxpayers, that imbalance has become a political weapon. For European members, it has become an uncomfortable bill coming due. Back in 2014, after Russia annexed Crimea, NATO members made a promise at the Wales summit. Every country would spend at least 2% of its economy on defense within a decade. For years, that promise was mostly fiction. As recently as 2021, only a handful of members hit the target. Germany, Europe's largest economy, hovered near 1.3%. The 2% line was never a fee paid to NATO. It is simply what each country spends on its own military. But it became the scoreboard for a simple accusation. Europe was buying its security at a discount, and Washington was covering the difference. Then war returned to Europe, and the spreadsheet changed overnight. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine did what decades of American pressure could not. Poland surged past 4% of its economy, the highest in the alliance. Germany announced a special €100 billion defense fund and hit 2% for the first time in 3 decades. The Baltic states, sitting closest to the border, pushed toward 3% and beyond. Nearly every member now meets or exceeds the old target. Fear, it turns out, is a more effective treasurer than any summit communique. The eastern flank is not spending to please Washington. It is spending because the threat is next door. All that money is now colliding with a hard industrial reality. Europe spent 30 years shrinking its defense industry, and rebuilding it cannot happen overnight. Ammunition factories, shipyards, and missile production lines take years to expand. That scarcity is driving a procurement scramble. Just this week, Canada agreed to buy 12 advanced submarines from Germany after a heated bidding war. Air defense systems have multi-year waiting lists. Artillery shells that cost $2,000 before the war have traded at several times that. For defense contractors, this is the strongest order book in a generation. For governments, it means every promised percentage point buys less than it used to. The alliance has now set its sights on a far bigger number. 5% of national income devoted to broader security spending, agreed at the Hague summit. For most members, that is not a budget line. It is a transformation of the state on the scale of healthcare or pensions. And that is the real story behind every NATO crisis headline. The question was never whether the alliance believes in itself. It is whether democracies can sustain wartime levels of spending during peacetime, year after year, when schools and hospitals compete for the same money. Here's what the coverage is missing. Alliances do not collapse from disagreement. They collapse when the bill arrives and nobody wants to pay it. Watch this space, because the next decade of European politics will be shaped by that bill.